October 28th. Hi, everybody. I'm Aaron Schatz, Editor-in-Chief of Football Outsiders, joined as always on Thursdays by Mike Tanier and our special guest for this Thursday, Bryan Knowles. We are here to preview Week 8 of the NFL season. We're going to hit all the big games of this week. Thank you so much again for joining us on Twitch, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, in the little widget on the top right-hand part of our website. Wherever you are watching us right now or listening to us after the fact on the Football Outsiders Podcast Network, a reminder to please subscribe to make sure you catch all our shows every weekday at 1 p.m. And today, as always on Thursday, we're going to hit the big games of the week. We noted right before we came on the air that there are 4 10-point lines this week. So we are a little bit in the doldrums of the NFL season. We will not be discussing those games this week.
Aw. I want to talk about the Jets.
Do you want to go deep into Houston, the Houston Texans, and the Rams? All right. I'll throw this out there.
Okay.
Which of these games is the underdog most likely to cover? Buffalo minus 13.5 against Miami. Rams minus 14.5 against Houston. Cincinnati minus 10.5 against the Jets. Or Kansas City minus 10 against the Giants.
It honestly might be the Texans just because the Rams came out a little flat last week. But I'm not going to be putting money on any of these.
I think you're right. It probably is the Texans. And because you're right, the Rams came out flat. The Texans came out a little strong last week.
Oh, yeah,
and have come out a little strong in past weeks. I have been losing a lot of money on my first quarter props. And I'm taking the Texans plus 7.5 for the first half of this game.
Ooh.
But I'm also going Rams 35, Texans 16 for the final. So that's just me. I don't expect other people to follow me on this journey.
Texans coming out strong on Twitter, too. Brandon Cook's not happy about the Mark Ingram trade.
Right.
As the leader of the Tua Tagovailoa is not as bad as you think brigade, I would go with Miami plus 13.5 if I had to go with one of these underdogs. If you combine the fact that the Buffalo defense, as great as it's been, right, we know defense less consistent, less predictive than offense.
Right.
If you combine that with Tua is better than Brissett. Sorry, I know Tua has not been as advertised. He needs to improve in his second year. He's currently below replacement level. He's still better than Brissett.
Right.
I would go with Miami plus 13.5 if I had to go with one of those games.
He has shown life in the second half of games as well. He showed life last week in that respect. And I think in general, the Dolphins are more competitive than some of these other teams. Just all of and I wrote about it in last week's walkthrough, all of the double-digit dogs, all of those teams, they have a hard time climbing off the carpet in these games. So I'll see 10, 11, 12, 13-point spreads, and usually I want to jump on the backdoor cover. These teams, most of them don't put up a lot of the fight in the fourth quarter. So that might be what is different about the Dolphins.
No, that's what the Lions do, right? The Lions feel like the backdoor cover team of the year.
Right. Yeah, but no one's giving them big spreads anymore because everyone's caught up on that.
Yeah. A reminder for those of you who are watching live, please feel free to ask us questions in the chat. We will hit you up with whatever you ask. But let's talk about now the really good games, like the actual games of this week that matter. Not the games with the big spreads don't matter because there's always the possibility of an upset, but these are games with two good teams. And let's start with tonight, because tonight is a great one that's sort of been ruined by COVID, but over the last 2 years, what hasn't? Green Bay at Arizona. Now, we have cool little graphics later on with our playoff odds. We don't for this game because this game barely matters for playoff odds. Green Bay is in the playoffs 98% of the time when they win and 91% if they lose. And Arizona 99% if they win, 96% if they lose. A better look at things is how often in our simulations these teams make it to the Super Bowl. Green Bay 14% when they win, 9% when they lose. Arizona 21% when they win, 13% when they lose.
Wow. The Super Bowl odds for the Cardinals are stunning. I mean, I know they're an undefeated team, but we've really accelerated from they're going to be like at the bottom of the wild card, last place in that division a couple of weeks ago to Yeah, 24% chance or whatever you just said, 21% chance of making the Super Bowl. They'll win.
Of making the Super Bowl, yeah. Not of winning it, of making it. If they win this game and go 8-0.
Because it's massive for the first round bye. I mean, it's nothing for the playoff odds, but there's only one bye anymore, and if you're 8-0 and you just beat the presumptive NFC North champions, I still don't get the Cardinals. I mean, we talked about how the Texans were frisky a bit in the first quarter last week, but that was against the Cardinals, and Arizona looked like they hadn't even met each other for the first quarter.
Yes.
They were down, what was it, 5-0 or something at that point? Mm-hmm. No one was getting open, passes weren't happening. Snaps have been a disaster since Rodney Hudson went out, and then that it was really disappointing. And then they won 31-5 because the Cardinals, the other team, were the Texans. But it feels like every week we keep asking, well, how good are the Cardinals really? And this was going to be a great test about it. And then now the entire receiving core is out for Green Bay, so next week we'll be asking, well, how good are the Cardinals really?
Right. I mean, I think what's interesting from DVOA's perspective is the Cardinals are better on defense than they are on offense this year. And I know that would surprise people because we've paid so much attention to Kyler Murray.
Right.
But Arizona is 8th on offense and 2nd on defense. And the big problem is the running game. The running game is only 24th. So the problem is not Kyler Murray throwing the ball. Murray actually has terrible value rushing this year, but that's a large part because those aborted snaps end up counting as runs in the stats.
Oh, boy.
But he's fumbled the ball a couple times on keepers, too, not just on aborted snaps. Right. But their defense has been so good, and I feel like I've said it every time we talk about Arizona. Like, we went into this year thinking their defense is not going to be that good. Like, the only way they're going to have a really good defense is if Watt and Chandler Jones are both healthy and playing like they're in their primes.
Right.
And the secondary has played far better than anybody expected.
Yes.
But now Watt is hurt.
Right. Watt is hurt. Keep an eye on those snaps because Max Garcia, the backup center, was hurt. So they may be going with a third-string center tonight. I don't have an update on that. And it wasn't just the snaps, and Brian, you agree with it. It was like there was rushes, there were miscommunications. There were rushes right up the front. Texans pass rushers getting right up the gut and getting to Kyler Murray and forcing him to scramble.
When I wrote the free agent value article before the season, J.J. Watt says a slight overpay just because of his injury history. I said, like, if Watt is the guy he used to be, then they kind of got a great deal. Well, they got a great deal for about 2 months, and now, I'm hearing rumors about a Melvin Ingram trade. Possibly he wants out of Pittsburgh. He would make a lot of sense to go to Arizona.
Yeah,
but it's just like now they've got to make a move because there's suddenly a surprise contender. You got to go all in when you have that chance.
I agree.
It's interesting how Ingram will fit because Watt. I mean, I think Watt still plays a lot as an interior lineman in a 3-4, and that's not Ingram's bag. Ingram is an edge rusher. That's all he is. But I definitely see when the rumors about Ingram said the Chiefs are interested, but the Steelers would not want to send him within the conference because they still see themselves as playoff contenders. So Arizona does make some sense, and it makes sense for them to make a move on defense. I don't know if they could pick up more secondary help. I mean, that's the big surprise of this year is the Arizona secondary, right? Because we thought it was just Budda Baker and a bunch of who the hell are these guys?
Yeah.
And they've played really well.
Right. Murphy's played very well. They've had additional help at safety, other players.
Alford has played reasonably.
Yes. But then you come to the other side of the ball. Like you said, we now know Davante Adams is out in this game.
Yep.
Eddie Lazard, unvaccinated. He's out. Somebody pointed out earlier, the Packers have scored a lot of points without Davante Adams in the past. So a handful of games that he's been unavailable. And it does, the theory, not to do Patrick Ewing theory type stuff, but like for a week or two to make Aaron Rodgers be like, oh, you have to actually do the game plan now, Aaron. You can't just throw to your guy. And now you have to get these other guys involved. Could have one game possibly have a short-term boost against, again, a team that's now missing one of their edge rushers.
It hurts though when you're missing 2 of your top receivers here. So they're going with Randall Cobb, Amari Rodgers, and then Equanimeous St. Brown, I think is the third one. Maybe
unless Marquez Valdes-Scantling, if his hamstring is good enough to go, he'll go, and he'd be pretty important because Cobb and Amari Rodgers are the short guys, and you really want a field stretcher, and you'd much rather have Valdes-Scantling than Equanimeous St. Brown as the field stretcher.
Agreed.
I will say Arizona is 29th against other wide receivers. I have no idea who that is in this game.
That's all the Packers receivers. All the Packers receivers.
Right, that's all of them. And they're number 1 against tight ends, which is not a good thing in a game where Rodgers is going to really need Robert Tonyan.
Yeah. You might see, wheel routes and things like that to get Aaron Jones more available downfield and stuff like that. But you're right. They might as well all wear other wide receiver on the backs of their jerseys in Green Bay. So,
Another interesting thing about the Arizona offense, they are second this year offensively, throwing deep passes of 16 or more air yards. And Green Bay is 12th against deep passes. But Arizona has been very successful going deep this year.
A lot of that's AJ Green.
Shockingly, because, he looked last year like he was cooked. And it's not just numbers, and it's not just bad quarterbacks.
No.
Visibly looked completely cooked.
Right. Change of scenery did him some good. Sometimes that really is the case. And it also helps. He had a group of receivers there, so it wasn't like he was getting double covered. But a new system, maybe a different re-emphasized role where you are just a boundary guy. That is all we're going to ask of you. And we're going to get you the ball more often because we have a better quarterback, better system.
He's hit his 95th percentile outcome, as has the rest of the Arizona Cardinals. And, everything that could have gone right so far this season has. Now he's doing some injury stuff, and now
other than the running game being inefficient, basically everything has gone right for them this year.
Man, I keep picking James Conner in the loser league, and he keeps going, 10 carries, 30 yards, and a touchdown. Of course.
Right. By the way, one thing I did notice in this is Packers are notoriously slow starters, I think, every year. It seems in the first quarter. They're dead last in defensive DVOA in the first quarter. And that makes sense with what I've seen. They gave up big plays to Washington last week. They were letting that Herbert kid run all over them and let Chicago into the game early there. So this could be a situation. If they're doing some sort of slow start on both sides of the ball, Cardinals could get out on them early.
Definitely. Although I will say I did a little bit of work this week. And there does seem to be more predictive ability to the first quarter offensive DVOA than the first quarter defensive DVOA.
Makes more sense like that. You game plan well or game plan poorly, whereas on defense sometimes you're just we're reacting to what happened.
Right. Yeah. So this is now Arizona by 6.5. Who would you pick?
I'm taking the Packers.
I'm taking the Cardinals.
You're taking the Packers too?
No, I'm taking the Cardinals.
Are you taking the Cardinals?
I think it's gonna be. I don't think it's gonna be much more than 6.5. I think it's gonna be like 27-20, something along those lines. But I just, with receiving core being out the way it is, I question how the Packers are gonna be able to respond.
I took the Cardinals in the first quarter -2.5 because of what we talked about in DVOA, and then I turned around when I saw Watt out and when I saw the injuries at center, which I think are almost, let's go with almost as significant as a loss of Davante Adams. I turned around and took the Packers +6.5 to win the game.
Definitely if they're down to their third center, you get that cascade effect where it's like the backup is okay, and then the backup to the backup is
might not have practiced with Murray until like yesterday.
I like the Packers because the line it's a kind of big line for two really good teams.
Yeah.
I don't like it that much, but I'll break the tie between the two of you, and I'll say that I would go with the Packers +6.5.
All right.
And especially if you could get +7, that would be
yes.
That changes.
Might be worth buying the half point to get the +7.
Right.
All right, let's talk about our second big game of the week. Now we're going to Sunday at 1:00, and the battle for the AFC South. It's Tennessee at Indianapolis. Now we have the graphics.
Yes.
Tennessee makes the playoffs in 96% of simulations if they win this game, right? They will have like a 3-game lead in the division, and they'll have won both games against Indianapolis. If they win this game, they win the division pretty much.
Yep.
71% of the time they make the playoffs with a loss.
Oops.
Wrong graphic. Titans, Colts.
I was very confused there.
Colts, 62% of the time they make the playoffs with a win. 26% of the time they make the playoffs with the loss.
Yes.
So this is the most important game of the week for playoff odds, as far as how much the playoff odds can change depending on who wins or loses this game.
Right. And Darius Leonard went on it was either his press conference or he stopped by Carson Wentz's or Frank Rex and said, I don't talk about must-win games, but this is a must-win game. And what you just described for the Colts is almost a must-win game. It's also their first opportunity to beat a good opponent. No offense to the 49ers.
You're absolutely right.
A good opponent this year. They have not faced and beaten a good opponent this year.
They have a small chance to win a wild card if they lose this game, but if they want to win the division, they have to have this.
Right. And we talked about this a little yesterday, but I just keep going back and forth on both teams, up and down on both teams, trying to make sense of the Titans, who I think we have ranked like 28th or 29th in variance with good reasons. While at the same time trying to get a beat on who the Colts really are, again, based off of strength of schedule, based off of Cyclone Bomb, and based off some of the other things we've seen this year.
We talked yesterday about this, the Colts being the number one run defense in DVOA, very narrowly over New Orleans. They were minus 26% DVOA for their week 3 game against the Titans. They held Henry to 4.2 yards per carry, but he still had 113 total yards because he has so many carries.
Right.
The success rate of running plays was only 33% in that game for the Titans, but they don't care. They'll just keep running Henry and running him and running him, and then he'll break one.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't feel like they're going to hold Henry down. Like, even though they're number one in run defense, I feel like they're not going to hold him down too much.
And it's interesting because if there was ever a time for the Titans to go, we're going to throw the ball a bunch, this would be it. Because, like I said, number one rush defense, and 3 of the Colts' 4 starting quarterbacks either did not practice or were limited yesterday. So, if there's ever a time for, we're going to see what A.J. Brown could do, we're just going to run the offense through him instead of Henry, this would be the week. I still don't think this is going to be the week. That's not who they are.
Yeah,
it's not who they are, but they can take measured shots and get some success with that. That's kind of what happened in that first game. Henry was limited until later in the game. Tannehill was sloppy with the ball. He threw a couple of turnovers, interceptions over the middle of the field that kept the Colts in the game. That was a lot. There was a lot of march down the field, turnover by the Titans. If they can be semi-balanced, more balanced than we consider them to be, and eliminate that, especially what you're talking about with the injury situation, they should be fine on offense. They should be able to get the job done on offense.
Both teams have a lot of secondary injuries, though, right? The Titans have injuries in their secondary as well. I don't know what the current status is on guys like Christian Fulton, but
a couple of them are on IR.
Yeah,
and Byard's healthy. Some of them are healthy. A couple of the other guys, and I don't have their names on the tip of my tongue, stepped up big. I mean, obviously they were playing the Chiefs and they shut the Chiefs down. So there were some backups who came in. And I think they're journeymen who, were kind of pulled off the practice squad, because you can be on the practice squad as a 4th-year guy now, that they got out there, and they played well enough last week, and that bodes well because it's still Patrick Mahomes. You're still out there against Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. Now you're going against another quarterback who can be lulled into making the occasional mistake in Carson Wentz. So you should be able to handle yourself there.
And the Titans bring a lot of pressure. PFR has the Titans as 5th in pressure on defense, and the Colts are 29th in preventing pressure. Wentz plays himself into a lot of pressure.
And Eric Fisher is not very good anymore.
As far as the weaknesses of the Titans defense, they are 30th against deep passes, and they are 29th against passes up the middle, both short and deep. The Colts offense is only 30th on middle passes, so that's not a really good place for them to be attacking the Titans' weakness. But they are number 1 in DVOA on deep passes.
Well, they have the best play in football down, the underthrown defensive pass interference. That
is something that counts.
Yeah.
And that is part of it.
Yeah, I think they have 6 pass interferences. And the league leaders right now are around 7. And they're high. I don't have it in front of me, but they're high in the total yardage in those plays. Of course, there were 2 big ones last week, and they've scattered a couple others. But I'm obviously the Carson Wentz, court jester around here. But when they get a max protect or a good play action system where they neutralize the pass rush, working the deep sidelines, finding Pittman on the deep sidelines, finding Mo Alley Cox on the deep sidelines, he's been very capable of doing that. And that's been most of their big play capability. And really most of their offensive capability has been those things and Jonathan Taylor runs, some of which have been gash plays.
And it looks like Hilton is not playing this week.
Well, it's not the Texans.
So it's gonna be Zach Pascal and Mike Pittman.
But Pittman's been playing real well. I can't speak for Pascal. They got somebody else out there who's been playing well, and it's not Kiki QT. They've got Strachan out there. I think he's been playing well. So again, I keep like the strengths and weaknesses balance out in a way where I keep wanting to say, "Oh, this is going to be the Titans rolling." And I keep stopping before I say this is going to be the Titans rolling.
I mean, there really is a danger of overrating the Titans because their defense played so well against Kansas City last week, but that is only one game.
Also, they beat the Bills 2 weeks before, but it came down to that 4th down and inches play at the very end. Obviously, that doesn't matter for DVOA so much, whether they got that 1 inch or not. But our perception of the Titans, I think, would be a lot different. And the general perception of the Titans would be a lot different if Josh Allen had gotten his footing and gotten that extra yard.
Right.
That's very true.
Right. I agree.
I'm shocked at the line in this game because I would have thought that bettors would be very heavily on the Titans. And I have a feeling that the Vegas is setting this based on where they think the game is, not where bettors are, and that this is going to be when the people like Action Network report on Sunday morning about like where the great majority of the handle is in bets. My guess is the public is going to come in very heavily on the Titans. This has actually gone now in the consensus to Colts -1.
And it's right now at -1.5 Colts. So
yeah.
It has been boogieing all over creation this week.
I'm shocked that the Colts are even the tiniest bit of favorites in this game. I would have expected, given the conventional wisdom about the Titans, given where the Titans stand in various subjective power ranking articles around the web, I would have expected the Titans to be favored by 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think you're right that this is the house putting a number where they believe, and then they're going to adjust a little bit as the public puts real big action in on Sunday morning.
I would say the fact is DVOA comes out on the side of the Colts, right? I mean, because we have the Titans at like something like 22nd, 20th now. We have the Colts at 15th. We would come out on the side of the Colts. If I had to pick for myself subjectively, I think I would take the Titans.
Okay.
I think I'm with you. I mean, if I was getting the Colts and some points, then that makes a lot of sense. But I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I think we're a little low on the Titans in DVOA. So I got to pick the Titans.
Some of that is the Jets game, and the Jets game they didn't have their receivers.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I'm avoiding this game with real money, but I would take the Titans as well. And if all 3 of us at Football Outsiders are going against DVOA, it's a sign we're all screwed because DVOA is going to take us all down. So I'm still going with the Titans.
I mean, some of it is just which quarterback do you trust more? Like both teams have great running games, but I mean, I believe in Tannehill, AJ Brown, and Julio Jones more than I believe in Carson Wentz and Zach Pascal.
Well, when you put it that way.
Right? Like, I know that the Colts have some good players on defense, but the Titans have some good players on defense. And I feel like, I just feel like the pass offense, I just trust the Titans pass offense a lot more than I trust the Colts. Trust the Titans pass offense to be better than it has been, more than I trust the Colts offense on pass offense to be as good as it has been.
There's one interesting stat I dug up before this. The Titans are only 29th in adjusted sack rate on offense, so that's a problem. But the Colts are only 25th in adjusted sack rate on defense, so we got a real movable object.
They don't bring a ton of pressure.
No.
Whereas the Titans do bring a lot of pressure on defense. Next game we want to talk about, another 1 p.m. game, is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. So here's a battle for AFC North. Pittsburgh makes the playoffs 49% of simulations when they win, 21% when they lose. Cleveland, 64% when they win, 33% when they lose.
You know, part of me in this world, and no offense to Patriots fans, part of me would like the Steelers, Colts, and Patriots to all just go away rather than lingering at the bottom of the playoff picture. But the other part of me realizes that the more they linger, the more I can write about them every week and talk about them and kind of needle.
Are you saying you don't enjoy watching the Steelers run 48 crossing patterns of 2 yards or the Patriots run 97 screens that run over the Jets linebackers?
It's weirdly compelling, actually. I kind of enjoy it in a sick, masochistic sort of way. But I recognize it's not great football. But so circling back to this one, useful Baker talks about the mini bye. Coming off the mini bye, Nick Chubb is back. The offensive tackles appear to be back, last I checked. And Baker Mayfield sounds like he's going to play this week. So the Browns used that mini bye to get considerably healthier than they were. The Steelers are coming off a bye, but the guys who are hurt, I think, are hurt, and the guys who are healthy for them.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I like the FO picked Pittsburgh in this game, but that was based on Keenum playing. If Mayfield plays, I think the pick switches over to the Browns. Cleveland is 31st against deep passes.
Yeah. Which
Pittsburgh is not throwing many deep passes. It doesn't matter how efficient they are. Right. They're just not throwing them, right? So, like, it's a good weakness for Cleveland to have when you're playing against the ghost of Ben Roethlisberger.
By the way, I'm checking on their DPI rates here right now because now you mentioned that Roethlisberger has launched 5 DPI balls for 72 yards. So high, kind of, I'm sure they're veteran move. I'm sure they're underthrown. I guarantee you that. And I'm guessing a couple times it's a veteran move where he sees Claypool against the guy he thinks he's going to hold him up there. But yeah, I think that's the sum total of the deep passing experience for the Steelers.
Got to go with Baker, the commercial maker, says Useful Baker.
They really have Browns fans, they're really into this, oh my God, he does too many commercials thing. Like, it's just one series of commercials by what?
Yeah, does he have any other national commercial? Oh, he does. He has Hulu. He does Hulu also.
Right. So, I mean, he does commercials, and that's fair. But everybody, they were shot in like one day, right? Everybody knows this. He doesn't spend all of his free time running and shooting commercials. It's like one big shoot that was done, on May 17th. We had nothing else to do.
This game is going to bring a lot of pressure. The Browns are number 1 in ESPN's pressure rate and number 2 for PFR's pressure rate. The Steelers are number 3 in PFR's pressure rate. But the interesting thing is both teams are top 10 in preventing pressure. The Steelers, because Roethlisberger throws the ball quicker than any other quarterback right now. Cleveland, because their pass blockers are so good.
Right. And their running game is designed to set up a situation where it does slow down the opposing pass rush because they run the ball a lot. They run the ball in passing situations, and they prevent third and longs by being ahead of the sticks.
So I'm interested, what is your opinion of the great analytical debate of the last week, of last week anyway, which is D'Ernest Johnson, the fact that he had so many rushing yards, even based on the advanced metric, the rushing yards over expectation that NFL's next-gen stats does based on where the blockers are at the moment of the handoff and where the tacklers are at the moment of the handoff. Even based on that, he had so many rush yards over expectation, but so do Chubb and Hunt all the time. How much is it that Johnson is really good? How much is it that the Cleveland scheme just is doing something that's not being measured by whatever the expectation is in the formula? And how much is it that it was just one game?
Yeah, the best science is always based off of a one-item sample. That's how science, that's analytics, guys. One game, draw the conclusion, scream about it on Twitter for the rest of the week.
Well, I mean, that was one of the options that was brought up was, is the lesson here that it's just one game? I mean, that would be my pick. My pick is it was just one game. If
there is a lesson, it's stop paying attention to raw 40-yard dash time because Johnson's draft stock dropped because he ran like a 4.8 for 40-yard dash, which made him undraftable. And he worked his way back in through, I can't remember if it was the AAF or the XFL, but he worked his way back in. He was in the AAF.
Yeah. He was, I believe, in Orlando Apollo.
I think that's right. He worked his way back in, and shows that sometimes he looked like the back he was on film as opposed to the back who could not move in Indianapolis. So be a little bit careful about people running in their underwear. I think that's the lesson I take from this.
I don't know. I mean, the fact is, speed scores do have some value.
Speed score does,
looking
but
at the
raw
40 time with weight in conjunction does have some value. This guy just happens to be an exception, like Brian Westbrook was.
Right. And I would vote for highly, yes, the scheme and the interior blocking of the Browns. And the fact that they did have most of their linemen. I think Conklin was out, but Wills was in last week. I forget. Yeah. The offensive line, we know that matters a great deal for these backs, And again, I think we know that your basic replacement level back is capable of having games like this. But
I wonder how much the rushing yards over expectation formula, it looks at where the blockers and the tacklers are at the moment of the handoff, but it doesn't look at how good the blockers are at maintaining those blocks. And we know that the Browns blockers are really good at, like the formula will see using the next gen stats that the blockers are here, here, and here, but it doesn't know using next gen stats that they're more likely than other linemen to hold their blocks for longer.
Right. That sounds reasonable.
So the current line on this game is Cleveland minus 3.5. Before asking which team you would take, here's a curious question. Who do you think Vegas thinks is starting this game?
Mayfield, right?
Do you think the 3.5 line is based on Mayfield, or do you think the 3.5 line is based on Keenum?
It feels more like a Keenum line to me because I know Mayfield's still only limited in practice. I know he's doing the best he can to get in, and I think that it feels like they're hedging a little bit. I mean, I don't think it's a full-on Keenum line because I think at that point that might be getting down towards Pick'em. But I think that they are covering themselves a little bit here.
That sounds right.
Because I'm curious if it's announced that Mayfield's going to start. How much does the line move?
I don't know. Maybe a half point. I think a lot of people like me, I've baked in Baker starting in my mind based on the fact that he returned to practice. They're saying limited. They're being very kind of coy about it. I've baked in Mayfield. I'm guessing anyone who's playing the game early has probably baked in Mayfield. And I'm guessing that I like what Brian said, though, that it's a little bit hedged. So if they got to move it a half point, they move it a half point, but it's not like they took it off the board or put something crazy out.
I mean, I think Mayfield, Keenum in last game in his first start was as good as Mayfield's been this year. I still think long term we have to estimate that Keenum will not be as good as Mayfield in the long term. But I think that the drop from Mayfield to Keenum is less than the normal drop from a starter to a backup.
Right. Especially the way Mayfield has been playing, especially the way the offense has been structured this year. And, I mean, I kind of felt like we had a drop-off in Keenum as that game went on. That what we saw a lot of in the early game was here's the script to make Keenum look good and to help the back the best way we can. And then as we moved on, it was more survival.
Yeah, and I don't know how much to make of the fact that Stefanski was the quarterback coach when Keenum had that completely out of line with the rest of his career season in Minnesota, because Stefanski was not the play caller when that happened.
Right.
Shermer was the play caller when that happened.
Oh, God.
Shermer. One of the great fluke seasons and one of the great quarterback fluke seasons in NFL history.
Yes. Play caller fluke seasons.
Are you not a big Shermer fan?
No, man. You watched the Broncos last week. Who can be a Shermer fan right now?
No, he doesn't have a lot of his pieces right now.
That's true.
So, what's your pick if we're going with Cleveland minus 3.5?
I was reluctant to lay a lot of points for Cleveland, so I was looking for money line and over. The overs are at 42.5 is not low enough for me to get excited about, not high enough for me to go under on. So I'm just gonna bite the bullet and take Cleveland minus 3.5 at this point and try to make myself comfortable with it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Enough of the Calvary's coming back from the injury palooza game they had last week that I think they're going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I think I would wait to find out about Mayfield before I put any money on this.
Right.
But I would take right now at 3.5, I would take Cleveland if Mayfield is playing, and I would take Pittsburgh if it's Keenum. And I would wait, and even if the line goes to 4 when Mayfield's announced as a starter, I would take Cleveland -4 with Mayfield as the starter, I think.
That works. That makes sense.
Because you have to understand that I do think the line will move when they announce who the starter is. I think if they announce it's Keenum, it'll go down at least a half a point. And if they announce that it's Mayfield, it should go up at least a half a point. Because my guess is that this is a we don't know who's the starter line.
Okay.
Next game we want to talk about is, now let's go to the 4 o'clock window and talk about new DVOA darlings, the New England Patriots. I'd say the team that DVOA hates, but I think Tennessee has taken that title from them now.
Mm-hmm.
The Los Angeles Chargers, ladies and gentlemen. Mm-hmm. New England makes the playoffs in 56% of sims if they win, 26% if they lose. The Chargers, 74% if they win, 47% if they lose. And I mean, the question is like, is this finally going to be the Patriots having the win over a team that is at least average and who I think we all believe, despite DVOA having them as average, we all believe are good. You know, they had the close game with Dallas. They had the close game with Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. Are they finally going to get a win over an average or better team and a non-rookie quarterback here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I looked over, the Patriots DVOA, and I think we talked about this a little bit yesterday. They're around 14th in everything.
Yes.
And it's a little almost like suspiciously, creepily weird that like run DVOA, pass DVOA, run defense, pass defense, special teams, we're all right on this flat line here. And it makes it very hard to figure out what they really are. And I write about it in walkthrough. It almost feels like what we're looking at are a mixture of what Belichick has done to protect his quarterback and all the opponent adjustments coming in from saying, well, that was against the Jets, but that was against the Cowboys, or that was against the Buccaneers, and we have a hard time finding, and I have a hard time finding the Patriots level right now.
I mean, one thing I think is, even though we know special teams is the most inconsistent part of football, the Patriots are very consistently good on special teams.
Right.
The fact that they're 12th on special teams right now, I think that will go up. That was a huge difference between these teams when the Patriots manhandled the Chargers 45-0 last year. Right. And guess where the Chargers are again this year? Dead last in special teams. They just replaced their kicker. Their punter still sucks.
They just got a new return man.
They just got a new return man. So I feel like the chances of some kind of big special teams play turning this game in the Patriots' favor is a lot higher than it is in most games.
That's one of the things that has me. Well, there's no way I'm taking the Chargers and laying all the points I'm supposed to lay with the Chargers. Has me leaning towards a potential upset or at least a cover. One is that, and one is, I'm sure you've got it teed up, the run defense of the Chargers and how we
is terrible. Yes. The Chargers are 5th in DVOA pass defense, but dead last in run defense, and especially up the middle. If you look at adjusted line yards, the Patriots are best running up the middle, where they're 8th, and the Chargers are 32nd at stopping runs up the middle, and the Patriots are going to pound Damien Harris up the middle of this. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ramondre Stevenson was active for this game, and they could pound him when Harris was tired.
Right. I'm looking at something else that I just saw here. The Chargers have been outscored in the third quarter 11-52. They're all random. I mean, it's almost semi-random, etc. But there's like all these wobbly numbers. Like I talk about the Patriots, like everything is like on a level. There's a lot of wobbly numbers in the Chargers that kind of start talking to you after a while, saying, "Is this the team you think it is? Is this the team you think it is?" And I'm not like turning the page on them yet and saying, they're a fraud, they're going to go away. That's what I do to the Raiders. But I might start thinking that way if the Patriots play well or get a win in this game.
The other weakness we talked about yesterday, to me, the biggest weakness of the Patriots in this game is Jalen Mills having to cover either Keenan Allen or Mike Williams.
Right. And that's, I mean, Mills. One thing I noticed, did the Patriots always in the past have a cornerback who couldn't cover?
No, they did. I mean, for a long time, for the last 2 or 3 years, the one was Stephon Gilmore and the two was J.C. Jackson. I mean, that was a great combo.
Go back in history to guys like Otis Smith and Dwayne Starks. I think sometimes Belichick builds it a little bit. So if he's got a weakness at corner, he's got a system to sort of protect that cornerback.
Yeah, Ellis Hobbs, I guess.
Yeah, they had a few along the way. And those guys, he would use them lurk underneath in zones and stuff like that. So it's almost like, a weak cornerback. I've been doing that since 2002. I got a plan for that.
Yeah, I mean, so that would help with that weakness. And we talked about the Chargers are not really deep at receiver, right? They're not getting that much out of Josh Palmer or Jalen Guyton. Ekeler will get his. Right, Eckler's dangerous as a receiver.
Patriots also for attrition. I've been looking. Devin McCourty's not even on the injury report. I know he missed the second half of the Jets game with his abdominal, whatever. He's not even listed on the injury report, so he's good to go.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah,
right. And their injury report usually has 38 guys because they don't want anyone to know anything.
15 guys this week.
Okay. Well,
yes, Tom Brady is not probable with a shoulder injury every week.
Every year since 2006 till
we laugh, but Tampa Bay should have been putting him on the injury list last year. He should have been probable with a knee injury every week. Right. Useful Baker asks if this is the Hunter Henry revenge game. Ooh. It looked in the first half of last week like they were finally trying to get Jonnu Smith going as a receiver instead of Henry, and then Smith got injured, and then Henry got the touchdown.
Right. And Henry was playing very, very well. So I don't know if you have the numbers up about Chargers against tight ends, but that would be a big thing in this game because if you can stop tight ends and you can force Mac Jones to do more than throw soft ones over the middle of the field and his signature flare pass into the flat to the running back, you could probably ask a little more of him than what was asked him against the Jets.
The Patriots are 9th against tight ends. Mm-hmm. But 29th against running backs as receivers.
Interesting. So that's for Ekeler.
Yeah. That's your Austin Ekeler right there.
Ooh. I wonder if there's a prop for him.
Oh, sorry. That was the Patriots. The Chargers are 30th against tight ends. Uh-oh.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's adjusted for opponent, right? So that's adjusted for the fact that Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce and that Darren Waller is Darren Waller. Have the Chargers played the Raiders yet? I don't remember if they have.
Hey, let me throw – I don't think they've – played the Raiders. Let me throw a prop at you, though. Damian Harris and Austin Ekeler combined over 1.5 touchdowns.
Hell yes.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna play it in your honor right now because I know you can't. So I'm gonna play that in your honor, Aaron and Brian. Brian, can you gamble?
Yeah. I stick to daily fantasy mostly myself, but it's legal over here.
Okay. Well, I'm still going to place this bet in both of your honors.
Legal in Illinois, not yet legal in Massachusetts. You have to drive, I believe, to Rhode Island or New Hampshire. I don't know if New Hampshire has it. Rhode Island, I think, does.
Sounds like a New Hampshire kind of thing. They like everything to be legal there, right?
I would hope so. That is sort of their whole point.
Right.
So, let's talk about the line here. It is the Chargers by 5.5.
Ugh. Yuck.
No.
You going with Patriots plus 5.5?
If I have to, yes. I still have this thought in my brain that the Patriots are sludge that beat the Jets. No matter what TVOA says, that's still in the back of my brain. However, in this game, if I'm forced to put money on it, and it's not just on Ekeler and Damian Harris, 1.5 combined touchdowns, I will take the Patriots and the points.
Especially considering, I mean, maybe this kicker change will finally give the Chargers a little bit of consistency on special teams, but the Chargers leave too many points on the field to be comfortable giving them a huge favorite. I think they'll still win, but I don't like 5.5. I'll take the Patriots and the points.
I mean, it's possible that we're overrating the Patriots because the opponent adjustments are still just at 70% strength.
Right.
And I think that, they're higher in DVOA than the Chargers are.
Yes.
I think if the opponent adjustments were at 100% strength, the two teams would be tied.
Right.
But then even giving the Patriots 5.5 points, this is the strongest pick of the year so far for the FO plus picks.
Wow.
Patriots plus 5.5.
All right. Well, I'm glad. I'm gonna go with the system. I yield to the wisdom of the machine.
That's a lot. Like 3 and 4. Like you could see the Chargers winning by 3 or 4. Like that's
absolutely.
a large spread.
And kicker catastrophe. They've had 5 missed extra points this year with the old kicker. Now there's a new kicker. No, with that, because that's when you start looking at these bigger spreads. It's like, well, what if you got a missed field goal in there? Well, then don't trust that team.
I will say Hitchhiker's Pie makes a good point. What difference does the difference in Staley's fourth down aggressiveness versus Belichick's lack of aggressiveness make in this game? There's no doubt in my mind that favors the Chargers. Absolutely. I don't know how to quantify that yet in our formula for making picks against the spread, and I still feel like this line is too big. Mm-hmm. But there's no doubt that Staley is being so aggressive on fourth down. We're missing something a little bit in some of our measurements, because the fact is a lot of picking games against the spread is based on prior, patterns, and Staley's breaking the prior patterns.
Right. 4th and 8 conversions and things like that. And that's the thing that Bill Belichick's not going to do while he's kind of protecting a more station-to-station offense.
I think Belichick's got to get with the times, and they've got to let Mac throw and more on 4th and 1s and 4th and 2s. And it's disturbing to me that he's become so conservative, but I do not see that changing. A reminder, by the way, you get all the FO Plus picks by being an FO Plus subscriber. You can get an annual or monthly subscription at footballoutsiders.com. You also get all the DVOA splits that we've been quoting to you throughout this podcast /live stream. You get all kinds of fantasy football research tools that Scott Spratt has put together for you. You get all his weekly fantasy projections. You get all that by becoming an FO Plus subscriber. There may be a deal coming in the next couple of days. I'm just gonna put that out there. So
a deal?
If you come now, or if you wait a couple of days, there may be a deal all the way. I'm helping people who are watching the live stream here. Let's go to the next game at 4 p.m. This is the big national game. Tampa Bay at New Orleans. We do not have a graphic for this one because you'll love Tampa Bay, especially their playoff odds. 99.9% with a win. 98.8% with a loss. New Orleans is 93% with a win, 77% with a loss. I will say the odds to make a Super Bowl are a little different. Tampa Bay, 37% with a win, 27% with a loss. New Orleans, 7% with a win, 4% with a loss. So this is the most important game of the week for Super Bowl odds. Tampa Bay, 7th in variance. New Orleans, 31st in variance. I think that tells you a lot about the teams this year.
Who's 32 in variance?
Buffalo.
It was?
Because that game against Houston was so incredibly extreme that they're 32nd in variance based solely on that game.
Wow. That's remarkable.
Yeah, if you have an all-time struck performance,
they have one of the all-time greatest performances ever and 2 losses.
Yeah.
So that's pretty variant.
But I think of the Saints as a team that I think of as variant.
Yeah. Well, especially because they had the blowout win.
Yes.
First week. And then the second week they go out and they have the blowout loss to a team that now looks not very good.
And then they had the bomb cyclone game against the Geno Hawks, which adds a level of confusion to analysis.
I'm covering the NFC South this year for the Almanac, and I've been watching all these Saints games, and I still have no idea who the Saints are, who the Saints think they are. I'm trying to get a grasp on these guys, and
that's because they haven't run any plays yet.
Yeah,
they run more than any other team. Their run-pass ratio is stronger running than any other team. They're 20th in overall offense, but 6th on third downs, including 3rd passing on third downs. So overall, they run most of the time, but when they need to pass, they've actually been very good this year. I don't think Michael Thomas is coming back for this game.
No, we're still playing waiting for Thomas. He's nowhere to be seen at this point in time. It feels like the Saints themselves are playing before.
He is on Mars with Dr. Manhattan. That is where Michael Thomas is. He's not among us mere mortals.
Tampa Bay, here's another interesting stat that I don't think really means much. They're the number one offense in the league in the first quarter.
Ooh.
I mean, they're really good all the time, right?
Yeah.
They're the number one defense in the league in the fourth quarter.
It was fun after the it's fun to listen to coaches after these huge blowout wins, and they try to find some way to something to critique and something to criticize. And and Bruce Arians says something like, "Well, we only scored 3 points in the second half, and that's something we need to get better on." Like at the end of a 38-3 win or whatever it was. It's like,
didn't you unplug in the second half, dude? Like, you're the coach, you should know. Like,
right.
I'm assuming, we know Brady wants to sling it all game long, but I'm assuming Leftwich dialed it back a little bit in the second half.
They put the backup in too, didn't they?
Yep.
At a certain point, they put in Blaine Gabbert. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Gabbert. Hey.
It was backup week last week. I mean, the Patriots put Brian Hoyer in at the end of the game.
There's going to be a lot of that in these blowout games, I think, moving forward. But
some Chad Henne this week, maybe.
Oh, heavens to Murgatroyd. Well, I was talking about the number of plays. The Saints have only averaged 58.5 plays, total offensive snaps per game. That's 29th in the NFL. The Bears, the Texans, and the Seahawks are down there with them. So this is a team that doesn't have the ball a lot. Okay, meanwhile, the Buccaneers are 69 total offensive plays per game. That's fourth in the NFL. They're up there with the Cowboys, the Bills, and the Vikings. So it's a weird thing for the Saints that a team that is a winning team, they should have the ball more in the second half. They should be sustaining drives. There's a team with a great defense, so they should be giving the ball back to their offense more often. And I keep, whatever the efficiency of the Saints offense may look like, they do not have the ball very often. And I'm trying to figure out how a team that does not have the ball very often is going to beat the Buccaneers this week. And if you can point to the Packers game, but it's like, okay, in the Packers game, Packers have a weak defense. They're 24th right now in DVOA overall. We talked about having the weak first quarter defense all year. You get down to score on them, then you get a turnover on them. I don't think you're going to do that against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers.
Here's the other shocking thing about the Saints defense, as good as they are. They're actually about average in pressure rate. Wow. They are 31st in ESPN's pass rush win rate.
Really?
That really surprises me that they are that low. Like, is anyone winning their pass rush battles besides Cameron Jordan? That'll be interesting because Tampa Bay does not get pressured very much. So It's going to be hard enough for New Orleans to be bringing pressure. They're not a heavy blitz team.
No. The secondary is shorthanded. I mean, they played well in the secondary, but they're always looking for another body back there.
Right. There's a lot of that rookie Paulson Adebo, who we know that Tom Brady knows about because Tom Brady basically gave a scouting report on the guy on the Manning cast last week. Tampa also blitzes more than any other defense. So you're going to see a lot of Jameis Winston against the blitz. And boy, that's when you get high risk, high reward Jameis, isn't it?
Did you see the number of near gopher balls he threw in the bomb cyclone? There were a couple of balls that were handed, like gift wrap, to a defender who couldn't hold on to it.
It was fun watching Manning and Brady and Breeze react to some of these because it was causing them physical pain to see some of these balls flooded to the ground.
Yeah, it was. The Manning cast is so much fun, and it was especially fun with Brady and Breeze on it last week. I do find it really funny when Manning has on basketball people, and Peyton always wants to ask them about zone defense versus man defense and compare it to playing quarterback. Mm-hmm. Like he asked LeBron James and Sue Bird the same question about that. Tampa Bay plus 5.5 in New Orleans.
I want to take Tampa Bay and roll. A little worried about the spread, a little bit worried about a defensive battle here. So what I took, and I'm going to try to pull my bet slip up right now, is I took the Buccaneers and under. The over-under here I got was 50.5. That's a high number.
That is a high number.
Yeah.
For two very, very good defenses. So I took the Buccaneers money line, so I'm insulated in case it's a mucky defensive duel, even though it's going to be indoors, so it can't be that mucky. So Buccaneers and under at plus 150. That's what I take. But I was tempted to just say the heck with it and take the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean, I keep looking for like holes in the Buccaneers, and their secondary is basically all the mashing at this point in time. But that hasn't mattered. Everyone who's needed to step up has stepped up. I just don't see the weakness the Saints exploit to get a win in this one.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of with you guys. I think even at 5.5, I like Tampa Bay in this one. I do think they're the better team. I mean, I think they're like the best team in the league, them or Buffalo at this point.
Right.
So
yeah.
Based on what we knew before the season, plus what we've seen during the season. So I think I go Tampa Bay too.
I'm pulling for the Saints because that's the most interesting for the race down the line, especially for the race for that top bye seed in the NFC. Because
it does. If Tampa Bay loses, it helps Arizona so much.
Right.
Or Green Bay if they can pull the upset, because someone's going to win that game. Either Arizona or Green Bay is going to get a huge win tonight. And then if Tampa Bay loses, all of a sudden everything's back in that turmoil.
But speaking of the other team that's involved in the race for the number 1 seed, let's talk about Sunday night and the Dallas Cowboys at the Minnesota Vikings. Dallas makes the playoffs 99% of the time when they win this game and 94% when they lose. But it is very important to Minnesota. They make the playoffs 60% of the time when they win and 35% of the time when they lose. And my biggest takeaway from doing prep on this game was that Dallas is going to run all over the Vikings. Dallas is number 1 in adjusted line yards on offense. The Vikings are dead last in adjusted line yards on defense. Dallas is best running up the middle or on the right side behind Zach Martin. The Vikings are actually good against runs right end, but they're terrible against runs listed as middle or right tackle. So I think Dallas is just going to try to bulldoze them.
How are you the Minnesota Vikings, who are supposed to be team sort of balanced in an old-fashioned way and last in line yards? It's mind-boggling how
you were terrible last year too. Their defensive and they got back Michael Pierce from COVID, and then the other guy came back, I think, from injury. I can't remember now who the other defensive tackle is. Oh, isn't it Tomlinson? They signed in free agency.
I think so. Yeah.
And they're still not stopping the run.
Right. Well, I mean, the Cowboys should roll in this. I'm looking at those beautiful bars, not beautiful to an old Eagles fan, but like looking at those 99s and 94s there, and the storyline.
But some of that is their division, right? I mean, they've got a 3.5 game lead on the rest of their division or something.
Yeah. I mean,
no one's shouted them.
The Eagles are a mess. The Giants are the mess, and Washington is a mess. One thing I'm going to pull it up here for a moment. Interesting if we start talking about spread or if we're looking for some sort of trend. Vikings as home underdogs, which they are right now. 10-4 as home underdogs since Mike Zimmer has come on board, and 3-1 as home underdogs. This is against the spread, by the way, folks. 3-1 home dogs under Cousins, 10-4 under Zimmer. Now, I'm not a big trends guy, and trends are not necessarily very good for analytics, but I went back and looked at the games. And there are a lot of games where the Vikings wound up losing by 2 points or by 3 points against an opponent like the Cowboys.
The problem with that is that the spread is tiny.
Oh, I thought
the spread is only 1.5.
Oh, it was up at around 3.5 earlier, or 2.5. I thought at the beginning of the week. Yeah,
yes, it's moved towards Minnesota, and for the life of me, I can't understand why. But Minnesota is playing a very important role. It's in the culture of the NFC at this point. They're the how the heck is this team ahead of us in the playoff race team? They're at 3-3. So if you're like the Bears or the Niners or the Falcons, you look at them like, how are these guys ahead of us? We could be right there too. If the Vikings are in a playoff spot, we've got a chance as well. They just keep winning these narrow wins. It's like
they are on their way to the 9-8 7th playoff spot.
Yeah,
but that's right on pace.
That's their goal. That's who the Vikings are. That's who they almost always are. That's how they built this team, and it's what they're going to do next year too, because they've extended everybody's contracts until the sun burns out. But that's it. So, it almost comes. You're at that point in the Cowboys season where it's like, well, La'el Collins is back. Gallup is coming back. They're getting stronger on offense. They've had some injuries on defense, but that doesn't seem to matter. It's now down to, well, according to the Cowboys storyline, according to the narrative conventions of the Dallas Cowboys, this is where they start imploding and getting melodramatic over some weird thing and losing. But that's not good analytics. I don't think that's good betting or DFS. It's just something that's kind of programmed into our brains. I don't think it's going to happen this week. The Cowboys are just so much better on offense that they should roll.
I'm surprised. I am surprised that the line is so low.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that the DVOA premium picks, FO plus picks formula comes out with a line that's pretty close to the actual line. Although it does favor Dallas.
Is it the Vikings offense, right? And the fact that it's
the Vikings offense is 12th. The Vikings defense is 6th.
How? Explain this to me. I don't get it.
I don't know. You got to look at the Vikings schedule, I guess, and look at who they've played. But they kept Cleveland to 14.
Yeah. Everybody was hurt.
Kept Seattle to 17 when it was still Russell Wilson.
They gave up 28 to the Panthers. The recent Panthers.
Yeah, it's weird, right? It's weird. They come out as 6th on defense.
Well, be that as it may, they also come out dead last in line yards. So there's indicators that things are going.
Yeah, they're 3rd against the pass by DVOA and 24th against the run.
21 sacks. They have 21
sacks. They're getting a lot of pressure, actually. PFR has the number 1 in defensive pressure rate.
Fascinating.
But it's almost all coming from Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin. No one else has more than 3 hurries.
Right.
It feels like the Vikings, a lot of small things are going right repeatedly over and over again. And like if 1 or 2 of those things break, the entire house of cards falls apart. That's kind of, I think, where all their high, they're getting all these big plays in high leverage situations, and that's helping them out. And if 1 or 2 of these things just come back towards the mean a little bit, then they'll be the Vikings that match our eyes to a certain extent.
That sounds right. I believe that. And if we go digging into these sacks, I'm not sure what we would find here in terms of like the Lions and injured Browns linemen and things like that. Vikings have committed 9 fumbles and only lost 3 of them, Aaron. Is that in the fumble luck range?
That is in the fumble luck range. Yeah, that's accounted for in DVOA, but that suggests that they've had good they've fumbled the ball 9 times and they've only recovered 3.
They've only lost 3.
They've only lost 3. So that suggests they're not as good as it looks.
Yeah.
The Cardinals, of course, are like that also. We throw back to the first game we talked about. The Cardinals have a very, very high fumble recovery rate this year.
Right.
Some of that's on the botch snaps, though, right? And botch, I would imagine.
And botch snaps are recovered by the offense more than other fumbles. That's true. Eventually, I'm going to create some kind of an estimated fumble recovery metric that like looks at the types of fumbles so that it's not just looking at the percentage. But the Cardinals have had fumble luck.
Yeah. Right.
So I assume we're all on, as far as the line goes, we're all on Dallas minus 1.5.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. I went Cowboys and over in a parlay. I think it was around plus 150, but the line was around 2.5 when I did that.
Maybe you could convince me if it's still 3.5 for the Vikings. Like I could get into some kind of story of the passing attack working and them shutting down a Dak Prescott, but not at this line.
Yeah, I'm with you totally. All right, that does it for the Thursday show. Thank you so much for watching the show or listening afterwards. And don't forget, again, we are here every day on your favorite streaming app, talking football at 1 p.m. Eastern every weekday. Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, Football Outsiders. One of our people just posted the Packers have ruled out Davante Adams and Lazard and Marquez Valdes-Scantling have all been ruled out.
No halfling.
I already knew about Lazard and Adams. MVS they hadn't decided on yet. Tomorrow, Scott Spratt and guest. I'm not sure. I should really learn who Scott Spratt's going to have as his guest so I can promote that at the end of these Thursday shows. They'll be on Friday at 1 p.m. to get you all ready for a weekend of DFS. Exciting daily fantasy weekend for all you FanDuel and DraftKings people. And I We'll be back on Monday with Ian O'Connor to review Week 8 in the NFL. Thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next time, which is tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Everybody enjoy Thursday Night Football tonight. So long.